Before we get to the good news, I'm afraid I have some bad news for you about the future. We already know disease is spreading. Soon the global food supply will be in jeopardy. Clean water will become scarce. Violence will continue at alarming rates. The income gap will increase, forcing many into slavery-like conditions. And the president will be more interested in delivering tough guy statements than in actually leading. Of course, none of that is happening now. Okay, most of it is. The one place where all that is happening is in Octavia Butler's dystopian science fiction novel, The Parable of the Sower, written in 1993 about life in the early 2020s. Thank goodness it's all fiction. Actually, Butler's book is one of the most ominous, prescient, and simultaneously hopeful books of our times. It tells the story of a young woman named Lauren who lives in America, 2024, where climate change has driven society to violence and to the brink of extinction. Lauren ends up escaping the conditions of her community and heading north, where things are not perfect, but freer, better, safer. Like the author, Lauren is a Black woman, a rare demographic in science fiction. In most dystopian novels, religion becomes a corrupted tool of oppression. In Butler's novel, Lauren creates a new religion as a force of liberation. In her diary, Lauren struggles to understand God. She writes, "A lot of people seem to believe in a big daddy God or a big cop God or a big king God. They believe in a kind of super person. So what is God? Just another name for whatever makes you feel special and protected?" She concludes that diary entry by asking, what if all that is wrong? What if God is something else altogether? So Lauren looks around for the most powerful, enduring force she can find and concludes that change is the most powerful and constant thing in the universe. It is infinite and irresistible. Therefore, she concludes, God is change. As a side note, there is a whole branch of Christian theology based on that idea called process theology. Look it up. Anyway, Lauren writes a series of verses about her religious ideas on change. The first entry goes like this: all that you touch, you change. All that you change, changes you. The only lasting truth is change. God is change. Now, she means that literally, not as a metaphor or a poetic thing. God is change. In the book, Lauren witnesses the unraveling of society and civilization. Everyone else resists change, clings to the past, hoping to reverse the chaotic changes around them, yearning for the good old days, and making a real mess in the process. There's even a zealot, rabble-rousing president who pledges to make America great again. Yes, Octavia Butler actually wrote that in the 1990s. Lauren is different. Lauren plans for the next terrible thing to happen while holding a vision of a new community. She becomes a sower, casting her seeds as the world falls apart, watching, waiting for new life to take hold. In fact, the new God is change religion she founds is called Earthseed. Most of us resist change and cling to the past. Change brings loss of what we know and uncertainty about what will be. Few people, it seems, have the courage to let go of fear long enough to be reshaped by God and to shape life with God. This is where Lauren's Earthseed religion gets super interesting. In her fourth verse of Earthseed, Lauren says, "We do not worship God, we attend God, we shape God. In the end, we yield to God, we adapt and endure, for we are Earthseed." For Lauren, God shapes us and is shaped by us. We all participate with God in co-creating our lives and all life. Think about gardening or farming. It's a co-creative, life-shaping process. A town vicar once walked past a man working in his garden and stopped to admire the results. "Ah, Mr. O'Malley, you and God are doing some fine work together in the garden." To which Mr. O'Malley replied, "Thank you truly, vicar, but between you and me, you should have seen the place when God had it alone." With very little help or guidance from us, our gardens bloom and blossom in a riot of color and scent and nutritious value. For me, ministry is gardening, being a sower. I'm not creating the energy of this community. I'm not making all of the amazing things happen. I just plant seeds and water, occasionally weed. Really, we do all that together. If the soil is ready and receptive, beautiful things will grow. And we can either resist change in the vain hope that things will return to how they were before, or we can choose to work with the changes and have a say in what happens next. We are in a time of profound change and crisis. Not as much as Lauren's world, but close. Because so much is changing, God is moving in profound ways. We can welcome the God seeds of change, or we can harden the soil of our hearts and miss out. These days, I'm more and more aware, and hopefully we're all more and more aware of the resistance to change called white supremacy. White supremacy is not only hard-packed, thorny, rocky ground, it's a layer of concrete that clings to the past and denies anything new to grow. If you are white and right now you're thinking to yourself, "Oh no, not all this again. I'm so tired of being beat up for being white. I'm not racist, okay?" That's the concrete talking. Look, here's the deal. If you are white and grew up in America in mostly white culture, educated in the American education system, which focuses almost exclusively on white people, and you have emerged with no racism lingering in your veins, you are not only exceptional, you're a miracle. If you are a white American, you have a 99.999% chance of being infected by racism. You might be asymptomatic and take lots of precautions. You might be a coughing, hacking, disaster super spreader, but it's there. The farming work of this moment is not only about uprooting stone statues and weeding out bad laws and figuring out how to soften the hardened hearts of America. It's also about weeding out white supremacy and the rocks of defensiveness that linger in each one of us. And that does not come naturally to white people. White folks, even good, progressive white folks like us, are resistant to acknowledging racism. See, white supremacy is not just for obvious white supremacist hate groups, people who carry torches and spray paint swastikas. White supremacy is not something conscious, woke white folk occasionally lapse into. No, white supremacy is our norm. It is our default. It is what legitimates the American tradition of abusing and destroying black and brown bodies. And until we uproot this demonic default in ourselves, the racist within, we can mow the weeds down, but the roots won't be unearthed. So, how do we get to the roots? First, just be honest that racism is in there. Stop living in resentful, defensive, hard-hearted denial. That will immediately soften up the soil. Remember, white supremacy or assumptions of black inferiority isn't something you created. It was passed on to you. It's not my white supremacy, it's society's white supremacy. It's the air we breathe, air that is toxic. Second, be open and receptive. When a person of color or another white person points something out to you, gives you a little feedback, just listen, Don't interrupt, don't justify, don't talk about how life has been hard for you too. Just observe all those reactions and defensiveness coming up. And when it is your turn to respond, let the first thing that comes out of your mouth be, thank you. Thank you. Thank you for caring about me enough to point this out. I'm really going to think about what you said because I know racism is in me and I want to be better. There's a writer named Scott Woods who says racism is a thing you have to keep scooping out of the boat of your life to keep from drowning in it. I know it's hard work, but it's the price you pay for owning everything. Third, study up. Learn all you can about white privilege, racism, and how it works. Our church offers regular opportunities for that, including right now, Pandemics, Protest, and Praise, Tuesday nights, 7 o'clock. As a church, we are committed to weeding out racism and tending to the voices of marginalized people in our community. I've been through maybe a dozen anti-racism trainings. Some were a few hours long, some lasted a week. With their help, I've broken through the concrete and pulled up a lot of weeds and stones and thorns on the journey to being anti-racist. But I think I will always be an aspiring anti-racist. Being 100% anti-racist might be out of reach, but that's okay. Being a conscious, aspiring anti-racist or being a recovering racist is not bad because the alternative to being an aspiring anti-racist is being a racist in denial. And the future of that, as Octavia Butler reminds us, is bleak. Fourth, practice being proactive and persistent in calling out racism in yourself and pointing it out in friends and family members, on social media, in person, whatever. If you see something, say something. As the sayings go, complacency is complicity. Silence is violence. Speaking of sayings, I'll close with one more saying from Lauren's Earthseed Religion in Octavia Butler's book. Prodigy is, at its essence, adaptability and persistent positive obsession. Without persistence, what remains is an enthusiasm of the moment. Without adaptability, what remains may be channeled into destructive fanaticism. Without positive obsession, there is nothing at all. In the words of Jesus, seeds that fall on good soil bring forth a bountiful harvest. Let anyone who can understand pay attention. Amen, Ashe, Namaste.